Welcome to the Focal Insights Podcast Founder Hour edition, hosted by co-founder Joe Pawlak. Joe has been in the e-commerce industry for over 25 years. He grew and bootstrapped his own startup to a successful exit. Founder Hour episodes go behind the scenes to learn how some of the best e-commerce brands were founded, grown, and operated straight from the founders themselves. Founder Hour is brought to you by Focal Software, a new generation ERP and operation suite for e-commerce brands and third-party marketplace sellers. Focal was built with SMB brands and marketplace sellers in mind to help them grow profitably. Now let's welcome our host, Joe Pawlak.
Hello and welcome to the Focal eCommerce Insights Podcast, where we chat with e-commerce entrepreneurs about business, selling online, and how to overcome challenges for success. Today we have a very exciting guest, but before we get started, for listeners not familiar with this podcast or Focal Software is an e-commerce operations software and marketplace account management company. So if you need help growing your business profitably, be sure to stay tuned to future podcasts or feel free to reach out. Joining us today is Monte White, who is the owner and operator of SkiTrucks, an outdoor shop that specializes in skis, snowboards, and year-round adventure gear. Monte's career started with 20 years in the ski industry, 17 years in the oil fields, where he started a business that optimizes oil well operations, and the past 6 years back in the ski industry at SkiTrucks, a company his father started in 1969. Currently selling products on most major e-commerce marketplaces as well as business to business, and Monte took over the operations of SkiTrucks in 2020 and currently lives and works in Salt Lake City, Utah. Monte, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we always start this podcast with what people like to call the origin story, or how you got into business and what motivated you to be an entrepreneur. It sounds like you've had an interesting journey. Skiing and oil rig operations are two quite different things. So why don't you tell us how you got to where you are today?
My dad had this business that I'm running now, started before I was born. And my brother was 4 years older than me. And so spent my childhood trying to chase him and catch up with him. And so I started skiing by the time I was 3. And for the first 20 plus years of my life, I worked in the shop whenever I could and was on the mountain whenever I could. And, once I kind of got in my early 20s, I realized that the ski industry was really hard to make a living in. And to start raising a family, I went and got a real job in, the oil field and worked that for 17 years and made a good career out of that. And then my dad got diagnosed with cancer in one of those crazy 93 days from diagnosis to passing situations. And so we were faced with the choice of liquidating everything and trying to, get rid of the business or, try to keep it going and take it to the next level. And so my wife and I, after, quite a bit of, contemplation and debate, decided to move back down to Utah from Wyoming and take over the business and try to make it work for us. So.
Yeah, two completely different type of businesses, I'm sure. So fast forward then to 2020, you're now, I guess, kind of inheriting a business that's been around for 50 years.
Yeah.
That's quite a while. So what challenges did you face? And coming from the oil industry, did that help you? Were you involved in operations that translated to SkiTrucks?
Yeah, so the biggest complications that I had taking this over was my dad, he was old school. He didn't, he had a hard time with technology. He didn't want to figure it out. And I took over this business. There's over 200,000 skewable items in the shop, and there's no inventory system in place. He pretty much just ran it off the top of his head and made it work for him. And so, it's being raised in this business with my dad, who was an entrepreneur through and through. gave me a lot of the experiences that I'm trying to utilize today in that from that realm. And then moving up to Wyoming and working for a big oil company was, it was exposure to, current business standards and models and how to make things work on a large scale level efficiently. And so, coming back and taking over the ski shop, I've utilized, everything I learned from the entrepreneurial aspect of things, as well as what I learned from working in big business. And so I'm trying to, establish this business model to take advantage of both of those realms and utilize it to help us be successful.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like your father really had that business across quite a spectrum of technologies that came to be. There were no computers. I mean, there were computers, but there weren't personal computers when he started the company. There weren't spreadsheets. There wasn't QuickBooks. Everything was on pen and paper. So
Yeah.
was the business kind of just sticking to those old habits, or did you adopt some computer inventories or anything that you had to just bring up to date?
So he had some things in play. He had a website, um, and he was selling on eBay, and Sideline Swap is another platform we sell off of. But it wasn't, you know, it's he was kind of operating in what I refer to as manual mode, because without technology, you're having to do each one of these steps that's necessary to do, day-to-day business stuff, by yourself, and it takes, it's just extremely time consuming and inefficient on so many levels that um, you know, one of my main focuses has been to develop an ERP system that ties into the inventory system and allows us to be able to manage all of the things that we need to manage more efficiently. There's a lot of programs and software out there these days that really take a lot of that work out of it and really make things easier to be successful, playing around with the online stuff. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of automation with those systems as well. So a lot of the things that, as you say, operating in manual mode, the software is just updating everything and keeping track of financials and doing all that for you, which, can save a lot of time and money as well.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, now I'd imagine then you said your dad had a website going. Was it the Wix website that you have now, or is that right? You've got a Wix website?
Yeah, I'm in the process of developing a new ERP system. It's going to be tied in, excuse me, it's going to be tied into the Wix website. And it's going to be hopefully able to upload and remove inventory as it sells, regardless if it's sold in store or online, um, just to avoid, issues with, multiple orders or dual orders or whatever, and to just make the customer experience more smooth and efficient as well.
Yeah, once you're in a lot of marketplaces or an omni-channel seller like you are, it becomes extremely complex. So when you say you're developing an ERP, are you working with a company that has that and they're customizing it, or are you gonna go with the DIY route?
Yeah, so the funny thing there is I'm actually just hired the fourth company that I've had to hire to try to do this for me because it's not it's not the out of the box option doesn't really work for us. It's this business model is not complex. I mean, you look at, UPS or some of these global companies that are massive, like those systems, I can't even begin to imagine how they manage all that. It's just unique on what a couple of aspects of what I have to do because I do a lot of trade-ins. I have a big recycling program. It's I we've tried to focus on keeping things out of the landfill and doing what we can to try to help, keep the planet healthy and sustainable into the future. And we're seeing temperature rises over the last 10, 20 years, and we're seeing that affect how much snow we're getting in the mountains, and that affects, people's ability to get out and do the winter sports. And so, um, the a couple of the biggest issues we have is dealing with brand new equipment to used equipment, and then ensuring that we have an inspection process in place. And to be able to do that while entering things into inventory, it gets kind of tricky, but the world's crazy today. It's hard to get people to follow through with doing what they say they can do, and it's been a struggle trying to get this thing off the ground. And the world's kind of been in turmoil for the last going on 6 years. I mean, COVID in 2020 really changed the face of business on multiple levels, and we're still trying to sort through all those things and kind of um, figure out how to work around the pitfalls of that and take advantage of it, and try to be successful with what we're doing.
Yeah, and when you say the ERPs that are out there are not one size fits all, that's very true. However, the core of them, or the good ones, I like to think, is the connectivity in the network. So you've got all of your inventory, you've got your products, you've got your financials, and so once you have that, then you're just adding features that are specific to everybody's business, which everybody does business a little bit differently. They have something where they say, "Oh, well, I have to have this feature."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so usually the impetus for getting an ERP or trying to cobble one together, or I'm not still clear on what you got going, but it's because you have a number of things that you're using, and you want to, in a sense, either connect them all or combine them into one system. So what do you got going there besides the marketplaces? That's really a system in itself, but spreadsheets, QuickBooks, what do you stack together?
Yeah, so I just hired on Salesforce. I looked at Salesforce back in 2020, when I first took over and was trying to get the system implemented, and they weren't quite in a position to do what I was needing. And after these last people that I had working for me weren't able to get things done, I got back a hold of them, and they've expanded into smaller business more and made that more accessible. And their features are customizable enough to where looks like we're going to be able to make this work for us. A couple of the biggest issues we have is, we've primarily been a ski and snowboard shop forever. My dad was kind of a kid at heart. He liked to play more than work, and so he'd use the business to be able to play in the summer times, and close down the shop for sometimes months on end, just to be able to go and kind of do his own thing. And so, trying to make a sustainable business, we're trying to get more into year-round outdoor sales, and just with the variable issues within this industry, there's the three main things that cause us issues are, it's a seasonal business, number one, and it's a seasonal business based on proper weather conditions, right, which is could potentially be problematic on really bad snow years. And then the third biggest thing is that it's a vacational expenditure. And so when, economic instability is taking place in globally and locally, that, your vacational expenditure is what people pull back from when, times get tough. And so if any one of those variables isn't like in play, or positive for potential business, it's a real struggle. And so, in order for us to, stay in business, we've had to diversify our revenue streams quite significantly. And, I do everything from I've got a shuttle van that we do shuttle service. I do long-term and short-term gear and vehicle storage. We do, all the services and repairs and anything within the industry that you can find. And then we also go out of our way to, um, do all the things that everybody else, tries to take advantage on upselling people on. It's growing up in this industry, my dad was very frugal. He grew up in poverty, and so he, valued things differently. And a big part of the success of this business has been able to take, trade-in stuff and used equipment and repurpose it and give it a new life and resell it, keeping things out of the landfill and helping keep people's budgets down. And that's really helped people, continue to access these outdoor adventures and whatnot, just with, prices on everything going up. And so, growing up in the industry, in the 80s and 90s, it was a different vibe. It was people who were on the mountain to have fun. It was all about, getting out with family and friends, and it's like the industry's trying to push it into a more of an elitist kind of economic realm, and it's isolating a whole lot of people that that can't afford to spend thousands of dollars a year, and so we want to help everybody get out and have those experiences regardless of budget or how many kids you're trying to get up there and all that stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, I like the idea of taking in used equipment too, because I know that personally I've got multiple skis that are, who knows, 10, 15, 20 years old sitting in storage. I should have got rid of those, the second year I had them. And how many other, millions of skis are sitting around that were, once the top of the line stuff. But you also talk about seasonality, and e-commerce plays a pretty cool role there in my mind, because and you've got your website, and I assume that you sell a lot of equipment through it. But there are times too when it just broadens your reach, and it allows you to kind of hedge seasonality. Meaning sometimes it's snowing in Park City or Deer Valley, but it's not snowing in Vail, or vice versa, or it's snowing on the East Coast or the West Coast and nowhere in between. So that allows you to sell equipment more than back in the day, so to speak, when your dad was pretty much regional, right?
yeah. Yeah, that's an essential point there because having access to e-commerce that like expands our demographic significantly. Like we ship all over the United States and abroad when people are willing to pay the shipping fees.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that definitely is a big point. Without that, I don't think we'd be able to stay in business relying on local, just solely local traffic. So,
Yeah, yeah, and if you can ship all over the world, there's even the ultimate seasonality is summer versus winter, right?
oh yeah.
Northern, southern hemisphere, there's people still skiing in July. Well, maybe even here in Colorado, sometimes, but not that often.
Yeah.
So the website then and your e-commerce, how big a role is that playing now? I know you're on Amazon. Are you able to do skis and stuff like that on Amazon, and or is it mostly accessories?
Yeah, Amazon you can do anything with, as long as it's within their guidelines. They are pretty strict with what they allow. We do quite a bit of new stuff. Big thing with Amazon is you can't sell used stuff on Amazon. And so it kind of limits us with what we do. And then um, but yeah, it's a decent platform, sure.
Yeah, yeah. Any other plans? Do you see any AI or anything affecting your business as far as the future of e-commerce? Because it's growing more and more every year. More people purchase just about everything, anything online that you wouldn't even think of before, like dish soap or toilet paper people purchase online, and it's there the next day. So what
Yeah.
any big plans for the future, or just continue to optimize what you've got?
Yeah, so it's so the big one of the big things that's hard within the industry, the ski industry in particular, is these companies, due to the issues that I mentioned earlier, all of the companies in the ski industry deal with the same issues. And so when you get these big ski manufacturers that, are expecting a good year and they over manufacture equipment, it has a tendency of driving things, kind of in wonky directions at times. And so the big thing when it comes to that is trying to keep, so the industry goes out of its way to make things hard for people that aren't like on board with their this year's current sales. Like
Mhm.
they'll go on and they'll try to scrub information from old equipment more than 4 or 5 years old. And that way, when you try to look up, oh, that ski's 4 years old, is it any good? You try to search it, it's hard to find information on it. And so, um, with that on top of just the knowledge aspect, there's so much to learn and know about what to do when you get on the mountain and you get hit so hard with sales pitches every time you turn around in the industry. It's really hard to sort through all that to figure out exactly what you need and how to do it right without exposing yourself to, injury or overspend or something like that. And so we try to offer a level of service that it's pretty rare and hard to find in the industry. We focus on customer service. We focus on helping people have the best experiences possible. And I solely feel that emphasizing that customer service aspect will is the focal point because that in itself will help continue to drive people back to us. And with that, the sales, the sales are going to happen, and so, um, that's important to us too, is to that education aspect.
Yeah, that business model of the manufacturers, it kind of plays into this concept of scarcity where they don't really want a bunch of skis that are 4 years old that are perfectly good. In fact, not much different than the ones from this year sitting around because that ruins the scarcity concept of you got to get this, you got to get the new one, and they're going to run out because it's the greatest new thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's switch a little bit here back to some business stuff. I've got a section that I call the speed round where I just have 3 questions for you as we wind down the podcast. It's just kind of quick questions and get your opinion with a fairly succinct answer. So let's start with the first one. It's getting into business. What would your number one piece of advice be for anyone thinking of starting their own business? And you can't use "don't do it" because we all know how hard it is to start a business and be successful. So you can't tell them not to do it. But what would your advice be?
So my advice here, would be to just be prepared for a shift in lifestyle, right? Like literally the hardest thing for me getting back into this after working in oil field for 17 years was that, um, having the freedom to, like I got so used to waking up every morning and going to a 9 to 5 from this time to this time. And then, I've got scheduled days off now in this line of work, I actually have sometimes more time and then sometimes not enough time. And so having to shift like how I just managed my day-to-day activities and like my perceptions of functioning in reality and in society, all those things really shifted. And yeah, and then don't get ahead of yourself, right? Like scale, right? Like start small, do what you can. And I made several mistakes looking back that like I made investments that I thought were going to pay off and they didn't pay off. And it's you got to be able to not overexpose yourself and be able to recover and work through things as they happen. But it's perseverance, man. Like society in itself isn't built for entrepreneurs, right? They're built for people to go to a job and then go to the grocery store and then not, and so it's kind of a different mindset that you have to have while just navigating life. So that's kind of a couple things that I'd throw out.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. The be prepared to do whatever you have to do whenever you have to do it, and it could be at 10 p.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Somebody calls you. At least in the early days of a company, you don't have a lot of flexibility or vacations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, next question. Successful entrepreneurs often say that they need to surround themselves with good people and need a little bit of luck. And sometimes those two things are the same thing, meaning you hire somebody who you didn't think was going to be massively impactful for your business, but they are. So what are your thoughts or advice on hiring good people and do you need to be lucky, or do you make your own luck, or what do you think of luck in starting a business?
Man, luck is huge when it comes to luck is extremely huge when it comes to hiring people these days. Like you mentioned, it's weird because several of the people that I still have working for me, I didn't think that they were going to be working here very long. And a couple of the people that I hired on, and I ended up paying more money because their, resumes were, really clean and looked good and they had the experience and they didn't last because, they weren't able to, um, you know, do what needed to be done and make things work. And so, it's hard running your own business because trying to figure out how you want to set up your policies and procedures when it comes to your employees and how you manage them, it's hard. It's hard to find people that are self-motivated, people that are willing to go above and beyond and show up when they need to show up. And so yeah, that is luck is a huge part of that. But it's we kind of look at personality anymore versus more than a resume, and so,
Are they going to fit in with the team kind of a thing?
yeah, like just the people's overall attitude and vibe is way more important than what somebody could put on a resume. I mean, anybody could put anything on a resume. So yeah, luck is a huge part of it, but it's been a struggle for sure trying to find good people, but there
Yeah,
are good people out there.
you do the best you can on the research and, like you said, the resume and interviews, but sometimes you just got to get lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, last question is, if you had a magic wand to fix one thing that is holding your business back or slowing you down, what would that one thing be that you would fix with a wave of a magic wand?
Um, that's a tough one. I would have to say, probably one thing would probably be literally global greenhouse gases, temperatures, right? Like getting temperatures back down 10 to 20 degrees cooler than they have been, right? To where we get better snow.
All right, that's going big with the magic wand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. So, but no, there's a lot of little things, I guess, but I don't know if there's any one thing that really jumps out at me, but
Yeah, a lot of times I hear having access to more capital to speed up a roadmap type of thing, but your business has been around for so long. I'm not sure that you've got massive roadmap plans. Maybe you do, but that's something that I do hear a lot.
yeah, I'm not designing this business to like continue to expand. I would like to kind of see it. It's always kind of been small. And I kind of think that, with the potential issues that I mentioned earlier, with the economic instabilities and the temperature, the weather um, and all the other stuff that I can't remember where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
Oh, just your roadmap, and if you're going to expand the business.
Yeah, yeah, just because there's a limit to what this industry can give you. And so, I've seen a lot of businesses, in the ski industry start and fail relatively quick because they tried to do too much too fast and not stay within the realm of what is possible. And so that's the big thing there.
Yeah, and it is a pretty competitive business. There's a lot of options, both brick and mortar for ski equipment and online. So yeah, that must be a factor that you can't just go out and expand so big that you beat everybody. I mean, I guess you can, but that would be a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, no, something like that would be hard. I've seen a lot of big companies fail too, just because thinking that they could try to do that, and it's really hard in this industry.
Yeah, and it used to be specialty ski shops, and then skis began popping up at Dick's Sporting Goods, or lots of just big sporting goods stores would
Yeah,
have pretty good equipment too.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we wrap up the podcast here, why don't you talk a little bit about where people can find you, or a little bit about the business, website, that kind of stuff.
Sounds great. Yes, we're in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have a brick and mortar store here. It's actually a warehouse, 25,000 square foot warehouse. It's pretty crazy what we do around here, but SkiTrucks.com is the website. You can also find us on socials, Instagram, Facebook, all that. Um, and yeah, we're easy to find on Google. So
All right. And then other than that, I think pray for snow. We're close. It's snowing here in Colorado today, not in Denver, but it's raining hard. So hopefully some of that's gonna get in your neck of the woods as well.
yeah, sounds great.
Okay, well, with that, we're going to wrap up today's podcast. Monte, thank you for sharing your experience with our listeners. And thanks to everyone listening and watching. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Focal Insights Podcast. If you like this episode, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be alerted of new episodes. See you next time.